Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's layout is inspired by Missy Whidden. I've been watching a few of her videos over a period of time, and she does a couple of things on each of her layouts. One is a watercolour background of some sort, and the other is to use sewing threads. So I thought I would try those two techniques today. I created my own cut file for this layout. I found the 3 individual flowers on the internet and I combined them to make this layout. I used scan and cut canvas to create the circle of flowers for my background, and I cut it out using white cardstock. I'm going to use this photo of my mother, and I've just got the cutout here to show you. I'm not going to actually use the black cardstock. I'm going to use white cardstock, and I'm also going to use this paper collection. It's a Kaiser Craft paper called Miss Betty collection, and the collectibles are from the Secret Garden. Right, to start my background, I've given the whole piece of paper a coat of white gesso. Now this gesso has been watered down because I'm at the bottom of my container, so I've watered it down and I'm going to coat the whole thing and then set that aside to dry. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to choose some papers to back my cut file. There are a couple of different ways of backing a cut file that I have seen. First is to stick your pattern paper onto the cut file and then cut around it. And the other method is to draw around your flower or whatever it is and then cut that piece out separately, just inside or outside the line depending on how you've drawn it. I'm going to try both styles here. This first one, I'm actually just putting a layer of glue around the edge of the cut file, and I'm going to stick some of that pink spot paper on top of it. Then I'm going to use my Tim Holtz scissors to cut around the actual flower from the cut file. For this flower I'm going to try the second method, whereby I trace around the flower and then use my scissors to cut out. Now I've traced on the inside of the flower, which is a mistake because then you have your pencil showing. I could have traced it on the back, I guess, but because the flower is not symmetric, it's very difficult to do that. So here I am cutting the flower out. When I actually stick that onto the cut file, I find that, of course, you can see the pencil lines. When I tried to rub them out, it was very hard to get in there. The other thing I found with this method is because the flower is not symmetric, it doesn't fit every way. It has to fit a perfect way, and to find that way is a bit of a trial. You can see me here trying it in all different directions, trying to get it to fit in properly, and even after that I still didn't get it exactly where it should have been, but it worked. So you can see it's a very long drawn out process. I'm not going to subject you to that, so I'm going to do the rest off camera. I actually opted to go with the first system of filling the flowers in. Some of the flowers have leaves, so I dug through my stash of scraps and used these to do the leaves with. For the background, I'm going to use these pearlescent watercolour paints by Semco that I purchased at Spotlight. I'm going to give them a good spray of water. I'm going to also give my backing card a spray of water. Then I'm going to use a brush and start to apply the colours where I think I might like them. I'm going to use 4 different colours here. I'm going to use a lighter pink, a darker pink, a blue and a green, and I'm just going to put them randomly over the background. There's no right way or wrong way to do this as far as I can see. It's a matter of putting the colour where you want it to be. I periodically spray with water and let the watercolours run down. Sometimes I add more colour over the top of a layer that I've already put down until I get the depth of colour that I'm looking for. Randomly I try my cut file over the top to make sure the colour is showing around the cut file as I want it to. Then I set that aside to dry. Now that it's dry, you can see the beautiful pearlescent sheen that the watercolours have. Now I'm going to start creating the actual layout. I have got a sort of a plan here, but I do change my mind midway as usual. I'm going to use some strips of paper down the left hand side of the layout. So I'm cutting these 4 flowers off of the cut file, and I'm going to back them separately and use them as embellishments when it comes to finalising the layout. The photo's of my mum, and she has a blue shirt on, so I decided to mat the photo in blue cardstock from my stash, and I've decided to use these 2 pieces of pattern paper down the side. That's my rough idea of my layout. That's about as far as I'd got with any planning. I am distressing the edge, one edge of each of these pattern papers, and you will see that I have got a strip of blue there that I had planned on putting between the 2 pattern papers, but when I actually put it onto the layout, I figured that it needed another layer of blue between the pattern papers and the background, just to give them a bit of definition. So you will see that I do add another blue strip. You can see me here playing around with the blue. I thought the layout needed a bit of a lift, so I have trimmed my background down to 11.5 inches by 11.5 inches, and I'm going to mat it on top of this blue card. It's the same card as I have used to mat the photo and to put between the strips of the coloured paper. I'm going to get a 1/4 inch border around the whole page by doing this. I'm sticking these 2 sheets together using Aleene's tacky glue. Once I stuck it down, I realised I hadn't inked the edges, and I wanted to do that. I want to ink the edges of all of the papers on this layout, and I will do that off camera. Now that I've got my cut file ready, I've inked around the edge of it, and now I'm going to use my hot glue gun to attach it to the background. I find that when I've got gesso or mixed media on the background, my hot glue gun does the best job of sticking things in place and making them stay there. I start to assemble my layers now. I have already attached the double-sided tape to the back, and I'm just going to play around here because I'm not quite sure exactly how wide I want this to be. So I'm going to layer the individual pieces together as I think that I would want them to look, and then I will cut them to the appropriate width. Now that I've got my strips assembled, I decide how far into the layout I want the strips to come and then I use a pencil and mark where I want to cut the excess off. I then attach that to the layout down the left hand edge. I'm going to use a piece of cardboard to attach to the back of my photo mat with my hot glue gun. I'm using the cardboard instead of foam tape because it's more sturdy, and the chances of my photo bowing in the middle are negligible. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to attach the photo to the photo mat. I'm having a bit of a play with the excess flowers, and once I've decided where I want to put them, I then attach my photo to the layout with hot glue. I'm using foam squares to attach my flowers to the layout because I like the extra height that this gives. By adding a bit of hot glue to the foam squares, I ensure that they stay in place. I've had a look through the collectibles pack, and I've chosen these items to go on my layout. The collectibles are Secret Garden, I think. They're not actually the Miss Betty range, but they go quite well with it. I am inking the edges of each of them, and then I will attach them. I used the watercolours once again to add some splatters to the background. I used a soft brush and plenty of water, and I've added a dark grey, pink and blue splatters here and there. Now for the second Missy Whidden typical element to her layouts. I've gone through my cottons and I've found this multicoloured one that I thought I might try because it's got blues and pinks and purples in it. I cut some off and tried that on my layout, and I wasn't very happy with it. It was too dark. So I went back to the pink and blue that on their own that I had in my stash and used those. For my title, I'm using this Scrap Effects chipboard. Says grandmother, but I'm going to cut the grand off and just use the mother part. I give that a coat of gesso, and then I give it a coat of pink acrylic paint. The acrylic paint is called Pinkest Pink. Now that my title is coloured and dry, I'm going to use some of my tacky glue to add that to the layout. Well, that brings me to the end of this video. I have to say that this layout is a lot busier than I would normally do. I did struggle with having so much on the page. When Missy Whidden does hers, she does not have this much on her page, but I just could not seem to get it to work properly, so I just kept going. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd love it if you were to subscribe to my channel, and if you click the bell next to the subscribe button, you'll be notified each time I create a new video. Also, if you'd like to share this with your friends, I would appreciate it. Thank you.